Hi, everyone. In this video, I'll discuss the documents required by the college if you're participating in a Wellesley funded internship or in our credit-only program this summer. So the first thing you need to know is that there are three main documents. The first one is the internship agreement. The second one is the risk and release form. And the third one is the employer letter. Please note that the first two documents are required by all students who are sponsored by the college, whether you're getting funding or not. And the third one, the employer letter, is only required by some students, and I'll talk more about that later in this video. So let's take a look at the first document, the internship agreement. This is a 3-page document. I'm gonna walk you through some of the areas where students have had questions in the past. So this document outlines what you agree to do when you're sponsored by the college. If you need to reference the video we're watching right now, we did put a link to it right here at the top. So if you need to reference it while you're filling out your form, please do that right there. So let's go through it. The first section is pretty self-explanatory, student information. You complete all of the required boxes. I did want to highlight this one box because students have had questions about it in the past. The sponsoring department or program. What you should put there is the department or program that is sponsoring you, funding your internship. For example, Wellesley and Washington program, the Botanic Gardens, Italian department. If you are only receiving credit through the college, your employer is paying you or you're not getting funding through Wellesley, then you would put credit only there. The next section is the emergency contact information. You can put down a name, phone number, and the relationship of a new contact, or simply put a check here to indicate that you'd like to use whoever you already have on record with the college. The next section is the information about the employer who has hired you. So I wanted to just highlight here that we ask for the employer address, the host address. Make sure that you give a full address, which includes the number, the street, the city, state, and country. So for example, if you're working at Boston Children's Museum, you would have 308, the number, the street name, the city, the state, and then the country. So make sure your address is full there. The next section then asks for internship details, which you'll fill out. This is where you're putting your title, whether your internship format is virtual, in-person, or hybrid. If your internship is virtual, I have highlighted here, you need to include the city, state, and country where you'll be working. So for example, if your company is in Boston, Massachusetts, but you're going to be working in, say, Saratoga Springs, New York, you would write in this section, Saratoga Springs, New York, and then USA. So make sure you fill that out if you're virtual. You also need to include your exact start date and end date. Notice that your start date can't start until after the last day of spring final exams, and your end date must end before fall classes start. So for the summer of 2023, your internship dates have to be between May 12th and September 4th. I also wanted to highlight the total number of hours. All of our students who are sponsored by the college, whether being funded or just getting credit, need to have at least 300 hours unless they're in a HIP. So when you're calculating your number of hours, make sure that your total number of hours is at least 300 hours. And then this last part of this section is for international students only. You need to put a check here if you're an international student to confirm that your internship directly aligns with your major field of study. If you're not an international student, you just leave that blank. The next section is the summer internship credit. This one, everyone who is sponsored by the college is eligible to get summer internship credit. So you would click this box after you've read through what you're agreeing to. Basically, you're acknowledging that you will complete any of the career education internship requirements. That's basically the pathway. If you're an international student, you're also indicating that you have to get this internship credit and do everything that you need to in order to earn your internship credit so that you can maintain your valid employment in the United States. And then the last thing I want to highlight here in this section was that you're also agreeing by marking this box, you understand that if you're withdrawing from the program or there's some change in your internship start or end dates or number of hours worked, you need to contact Lorraine Hanley, who's the director of internships, and you can contact her or any of us at Career Ed here in internships@wellesley.edu. The last part of this internship credit section is indicating what you want to be marked on your transcript. So if you want internship credit, you would select this first one. If you want research credit, you would select this second box. And so the research credit would be oftentimes for people who are working perhaps in a lab in the summer. The next section is the travel information and clearance section. And this one sometimes gets students a little confused. If this first one, you have to select one of these two boxes. If you are fully remote, you would select this first box here. You'd put a check there, and then you scroll down to the next green section, which is the general terms and participation. If you are not a remote intern, you are in person or hybrid, you would then select this second one, in which case you're saying that you understand you have to register your travel details with Travel Tracker through the college, and that you're responsible for meeting any of the necessary visa or entry or COVID requirements to get into wherever you're going to be traveling to. Students who are in the in-person or hybrid also need to continue in this section, and they need to pick one of these two sections. You need to select this first one if your travel location where you're going is not restricted. And if your travel location is restricted, you would select this box. The way you find out whether it's restricted or not is using these links. So the State Department Travel Advisory, if you click on that, you can look up your country where you're going to be going to if you're traveling out of the country, and figure out whether it's restricted or not. If where you're going is restricted, then you have to do one extra step. You need to submit a petition to the college by April 15th deadline. So not often are students traveling somewhere that's restricted, but if the place where you're going is restricted, you need to select this box and then petition the college to make sure that you can get approval to get there. So the last section of this internship agreement is the general terms and participation and code of conduct. This is basically the crux of this form. So what you need to do is select this box that says you understand what you're signing up for. And I'm going to highlight these because I think these are really important. First one is that you're going to check your Wellesley email over the course of the summer weekly. That's how we'll communicate with you. You're also agreeing that you'll complete the summer internship pathway. You're doing this voluntarily. You're also agreeing that you will be considered a representative of Wellesley College. So you'll conduct yourself in accordance with that and with the honor code. If you're being funded by the college, then you're also agreeing to doing any additional requirements that your department or program is asking you to do besides the pathway. You're agreeing to that you haven't accepted more than one award this summer from the college. You're agreeing that you will not, this one's important, that you will not accept any other full-time or part-time positions or enroll in any summer courses during your internship program dates. And then the last parts of section here is that you will, you're agreeing that if you have to withdraw from the program or you have a change before you withdraw, you need to get written approval from Lorraine Hanley, the director of internships. And if you don't do that, or if you don't complete other parts of the requirements, you may have to be required to return partial or full funds if you're not complying with the agreement. And then the last thing is the honor code. So once you've read through all this and you've selected that box, the last thing you need to do is sign your name and your date, and then you're done. So that's the first document, the internship agreement. That's the longest one. The second document, required document by the college, is the risk and release form. And that looks something like this. The thing to note here is that there are two versions of this risk and release form. There's this virtual internship waiver, and then there's another one that looks pretty similar to this, but it says in-person hybrid. Just make sure you're using the correct one when you complete this form. This form is 2 pages. It's not quite as detailed as the last one. You'll be asked to fill out all this information at the top, your name and student ID. Be sure again that full address, that you include a full address. So that includes the street number, street name, city, state, zip, and then country. phone number, location of your employer. So if your company is in Wellesley, you'd say Wellesley, Mass, wherever your city, state, and country is of the organization. And then this last box here is if you're completing an internship, so this is the virtual one. If you're not completing it at home, at this home address that you have listed here, you need to write down the address, the city, state, and country of where you will be completing this internship. So this form, this risk and release form, basically you're acknowledging that you assume all risks related to your internship and you will not hold Wellesley accountable if you are injured or hurt, or if there's anything lost or damaged, anything related to COVID. So that's what all this information is here. So you'll need to read through this. You're acknowledging and accepting the responsibility. You're also recognizing that Wellesley has a right to withdraw funds or credit if you're not complying with terms and conditions, but that you're assuming all risks and won't hold the college responsible for that. Once you've read through all of that information, the last thing you need to do on this form is to put your signature and then print your name and then the date. So once that's all completed, you're done with that one. The third document, let's take a look at that one, is the employer letter. So this one is the one that not all students are required to complete. Only students who are getting the summer internship credit, who are in the summer internship credit only program, or those who are in self-identified internships. So those are things, career ed grants, Wellesley and Washington, the religion grants, Jewish study grants. Anytime you have one of the grants where you found your own internship, you'll need to submit an employer letter. You do not have to submit an employer letter if you're interning with an organization that Wellesley already partners with. Any of the signature internships, the 4 internships in English, Italian, German, Ed Department, Botanic Gardens, Paulson on-campus, all of those already have partnerships with the college, those employers, so we don't need an employer letter from you if you're in one of those programs. If you are someone who has to complete an employer letter, here's what it needs to contain. It must have all this information, pretty self-explanatory, and then it needs a signature from your employer. The things I'll highlight here is, one, we have a template that you can share directly with your employer. That will make it easier. That will they can just plop in the information and you'll know that they have all the information that is required. You can access it with this QR code or this link here. Remember that they will have to include the number of hours of employment over the summer, either how much you're working per week and how many weeks, or the total for the summer. And that must be at least 300 hours, unless you're in a HIP. And then the salary amount is another thing that sometimes students have questions of. If you're being paid, for example, by Wellesley and you're not getting any funding from them, the employer can just write $0 there, or NA for not applicable if it's unpaid. They have to have the exact start and end date, and then again, the signature. So those are the 3 documents, and I just wanted to give you some things to think about before you submit your documents. This will help you save you time, because if you don't have the documents completed correctly, you'll have to send them to us. We'll send them back to you, and there's a lot of back and forth with our office that will cause you a lot of time and pain. So one thing is check that you've completed all the sections as I've described in this video. Make sure you're using the correct form. Once you have that all set, save each of them separately as a PDF. So name each of them separately in this format. So you'd have your first name, last name, and then the document type. So for example, we have example here of Kiki Smith, and then _ internship agreement. So your first name, last name, and then what the form is. Those 3 documents you'll then have to send to us, and we'll know which one it is. So make sure you do that. So you're probably wondering, well, where am I going to submit these? So good question. Where you will submit them. If you are a Wellesley funded intern, you will submit these documents in a Google form that will be in the pathway. So in the pathway, once you log into the pathway, you'll be prompted for where you're going to submit these. If you're in our credit only program, you're going to submit these required documents that we just talked about in this video in the application Google form. So you'll be prompted at that time. that is it for the 3 required documents that Wellesley funded students and any of our summer internship credit only students have to submit this summer. If you have any questions whatsoever, you can always contact me, Rebecca Miller, or Lorene Hanley, or Ann Ross. Just contact us through internships@wellesley.edu and we'll help you out. Thanks.